Hello, I am so honored and excited today to welcome to Global Conversations Round 4 from the ground up, three of my favorite folks in dance who are some of the most thoughtful and innovative artistic directors and choreographers working today. So first, I would consider friend, Eva Stone, who is a choreographer and a teaching artist and a producer. She also runs her own festival, Chop Shop. Garrett Anderson, who is the artistic director of Ballet Idaho, and Nicole Haskins, who is a choreographer, a contributor to Dance Data Projects because she's written a couple of just really great blogs for us, and also the training program manager. So welcome everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to start by hearing about New Voices. Ava, this was really the first initiative of its kind at a major US company in the United States. A lot of folks are doing it now, but it was your idea. And I know that it was one of those typical entertainment business overnight successes that took 20 years of work. So can you talk a little bit about that?
In 2018, I initiated a program at Pacific Northwest Ballet School called New Voices, Choreography and Process for Young Women in Dance. Choreography is my passion and my love and has been for 30 years. A lot of this has to do with the fact that I learned my art form in reverse. I learned the craft of dance making before I took technical dance training. It's a very backwards way to work. I don't recommend it. It's a hard way to break into the dance world. But throughout my graduate and postgraduate education, choreography has always been my main focus. So when I joined faculty at Pacific Northwest Ballet, I asked for room in the schedule to offer choreography. As you're familiar, any large ballet institution, every hour in every studio is packed with ballet education. So it did take quite some time. About 8 years later, I finally was given a window of opportunity to offer choreography to during the summer intensive at PNB. And the rest is history. The response was phenomenal. And just at the right time, PNB had been collaborating with the Toulmin Foundation, which is a foundation focused on promoting women in the arts, specifically in dance. And with those two conversations happening, New Voices was born.
That is amazing. And I also, by the way, will say that I'm also a contributor
Indeed, you are.
To New Voices. Nicole and Garrett at Ballet Idaho, you're also supporting the early development of choreographic and leadership skills with your trainees. Can you tell us a little bit about your model? And it's a little bit newer, and I want to talk about sort of how you work together to conceptualize what it should look like, how you conceived of what success would look like, things you want to change, and how you might expand it.
Well, if you don't mind, Nicole, I'll say a few things and then I'll just hand it over to you because you're the one really working with them day to day. Before the program started, and indeed it is a new program, Nicole and I had spoken about the value of stepping into the role of a creator. I know from my experience that it just makes you a more collaborative employee. It gives you a sense of, stepping to the other side of the room just gives you a sense of perspective on work and process that is hard to have when you're only a dancer in that process. It causes people to, or encourages people to step out of their comfort zone and embrace vulnerability. There's so many kind of technical things that it does for people, but I think just giving people a sense of both empathy and agency in their work, it certainly underscores that, and that can't be more important as an artist or as an employee. So Nicole, why don't you talk about how it has worked and how it's felt so far?
Yeah, so one of the things that really drew me to this program was Garrett's commitment to developing the whole artist and seeing the value in being in the creator's shoes and being in the front of the room. I know my own career, a lot of it came from these workshop type settings in companies that allowed me exploration time, creativity time, and space and time to work with dancers. That's really hard to come by, as Eva said. So I kind of had modeled it kind of as a hodgepodge of the two companies I danced for, Sacramento Ballet and Smuin Contemporary Ballet, that offered these almost yearly, if not yearly. So pretty much opened it to all. We have 10 wonderful ladies working with us this year, opened it up to anyone who wanted to sign up. Half took advantage of that opportunity, and through that had to submit music choices, casting preferences, to which I kind of divvied up the dancers. They've had a couple of rehearsals, tried some rehearsals on Zoom to get experience with that, and then they'll have a 2-week kind of intensive where they can create a piece, they can workshop ideas. In my mind, the goal is never just about making a finished product, but what happens if you push the boundaries of your exploration and creativity. So I really try to emphasize that you could have 400 little pieces. You know, you could have one phrase that you just do kind of military style, and that's it. You can organize it and have costumes and sceneries if you can obtain them by yourself. So really the sky's the limit for them. But to me, I think it's more about diving into your own artistic voice. And like Garrett said, maybe pushing the boundaries of what's comfortable for you, maybe pushing the boundaries of what you think is possible and trying it and see what happens, instead of trying to just make a piece, which I think limits a lot of creativity and has a different goal in mind, you know, that you have to finish it by a certain point, you have to make sure it's ready to go. And this kind of takes that burden off. And with no restrictions, what does your creativity take you to?
So, you know, this is an art form, but it is also a business. And one of the things that I've been interested in, particularly, one of the many brilliant things that Eva said to me is, and we saw this absolutely with our first round of global conversations, the approach that choreographers are taking now is very different. One of them, I forget who it was, said the most exciting moment of all for me is walking into a room, seeing the dancers and imagining what we're going to create together. So it's very different model than the you stand over there, I want X body type. And even in talking about how the work evolves, there's a lot of conversation about the dancer's active role. And I'm going to ask each of you, and again, short answers, why you think this process makes better professional dancers. So Garrett, I'll start with you and then I'll move to Eva.
I think speaking to the way that process has changed, the ability to collaborate, and again, going back to that sense of having a voice and having a sense of agency in your work. Some dancers don't know or don't feel that they have permission to do that. So I think stepping into a process that actually asks and nurtures that sense of agency is really important, just for that person as well as for the process that they're in.
And Eva?
Well, I mean, especially when you're looking at it from a ballet foundation, I teach level 6 to professional division at P&B, and the New Voices course is held for level 7 women. And when they step into this course at level 7, they're between the ages of 14 and 16. They've never once been asked, who are you? How do you feel? What do you think? How do you respond to this question? How do you respond to this movement task? And it's terrifying for them. And ballet training inherently doesn't ask that initially through the process. It's, here's this exercise, repeat it. There will be encouragement to expand and indulge in the training, but individuality is not generally asked for. So when you throw them into a choreographic process, you have to crack that shell, and then you got to start pulling stuff out. And I am finding that the younger we can do this, the better. And it doesn't detract from their ballet training. It enhances their ballet training tremendously, as they have a lot of self-discovery and are able to not only realize they have a voice and an opinion of how they see the world, but being able to articulate it through movement and choreography. It's a step-by-step process with huge reward, especially down the line.
That's particularly interesting where you said they not only have an idea, they're able to articulate it. So I did pretty well at UVA as an English major, but I remember one particularly scathing, searing, but also effective comment that one of my professors gave, which was, if you have a really good idea and you can't express it, consider the possibility it wasn't that good an idea to begin with. Now that's old school. You probably get fired for saying it nowadays, but I kind of like that. Nicole, you have been able to express yourself as a choreographer. The work has come out. So let's talk a little bit about where you see the utility, frankly, on a commercial level for dancers who have some background in choreography.
Well, I mean, when everyone was saying, I think one of the biggest things you get is learning to take ownership of your voice. And I think that can translate to where you decide to audition, what career path you decide to take, and learning that you have your own choices to make within that. And it's not just a falling down the path of least resistance, that you can choose what you want to do. I think having workshop just in general gives you work to show. So you can send that out. Most of my commissions were repertoire pieces that I created in these workshop settings. So very minimal costumes, minimal lights. And that's what I had to send out to companies. And that's what I was hired off of. So that's what started to build my portfolio. And I think if a program can be yearly, then and you can anticipate what's coming up. And I took it as an opportunity to challenge myself every year to expand my choreographic voice so that I could be hired commercially, that I would be an asset to a company to hire and not just have one piece that I've made and they kind of don't know if that's going to translate into a new piece. So it gave me opportunity to send my stuff out to schools, to companies, to summer programs. These programs, my directors would hire me for the year-round company rep. They would send my stuff out on behalf of myself to people that they knew. So I think it's kind of a win-win for everyone. Companies can learn who in their ranks maybe could be ready to create in a year or two with development. And it also gives the dancer choreographer material to start developing their repertoire outside of their company walls.
So two comments I want to pick up on and that folks have made and incorporate some findings we've got. So if you look on our website, there's a fabulous interview with Professor Sanna Norden-Bates. She's actually at a high performance sports institute in Sweden, but she's worked with English National Ballet. She worked with Royal Ballet for a little bit, and now with the Swedish National Ballet. And of course, Scandinavians, they're light years ahead of us. Her research, she's a psychologist, but she also does a lot of practical work with bodies, et cetera. Her research talks about the balance between perfectionism and autonomy and where that balance can come unglued. So for ballet dancers, that perfectionism, and I don't want to take words out of her mouth, but I think I've got the gist of what she was saying, is the perfectionism gives drive. It does provide the technique, the discipline to get it absolutely right. The problem is when it veers over into, it can have a dark side, and it stops thinking, it stops the ability to create, and it wrecks young women's self-confidence. So I'm going to go to Garrett and then Eva and then Nicole again to talk about sort of appropriate development, what you see in girls at that age, and that perfectionism versus autonomy, and how you see it playing out.
That is a really challenging topic because I think anyone who has danced knows that struggle. And I think the grit that dancers have, the tenacity that they have, is just such a wonderful driving force. And the ability for dancers to hyper focus and dive deeply into work is a gift. But if we lose perspective on the value of our work, and that means knowing where you are at any given day is going to be different from day to day, and that you're still in process and you're still making progress, even if you feel like you didn't nail the thing you nailed yesterday. But that's where you are today. And to say, today I put in this work and I value my contribution to the room and to myself. And that's a really difficult thing to affirm every day, but we have to be able to do that, or we will go backwards, or we will be kind of smothered by that desire for perfection. So it's something that we talk about.
Yeah, and I can see that links immediately to me, your role as artistic director, to bring that out in people, and I want to come back to that. Eva, any thoughts on this? Autonomy versus perfection, and when it can go to the dark side?
Yeah, I mean, my experience teaching modern dance to ballet dancers for the past 25 years, it becomes this kind of side-by-side battle between technical mastery and artistry. And many instructors get very hyper-focused on technical mastery, and then just kind of expect the artistry to come later. It'll just show up as you get older, as you mature, as you do your Swan Lake 5,000 times, you'll find your way. And I think it requires more deeper communication than that with these young students. And I find that it carries over. I mean, I'm fortunate to be able to teach the way I do, encourage my students the way I do. I often say that in the ballet classes, they get, tightly wound, and they have 1 hour with me a week, and I just try to unwind everything that they did. But in no disrespect to their ballet training, I bow down. Believe me, I've never been a ballet dancer, and I have no idea how they do it. It's painful and unending. And I respect it greatly, but we have to see that the process of training is multifaceted. And many teachers don't understand that because they have their job to do and other teachers have. So once letting the students know that that they can have technical mastery as well as autonomy and artistry and still explore. It just kind of takes, I'm finding over through my history, it just takes the right combination of instructors and the right institution to support it and promote it and encourage it. What I find sad is I know plenty of professional dancers with company contracts who still can't generate 16 counts of their own movement and wish they come to me and I wish I'd had your class when I was younger. And it's a problem. I tell my students, your choreography is not going to be handed to you when you're an adult. It's handed to you now. Put your arm here, put your leg here. Okay, your choreographer will come into the studio and say, here's your instruction today, go. That's it, that's all you're getting. So can you respond to that? And that's what we're, hopefully working on training and preparing our students to be able to do that.
The first time you made that point to me, I went poof, particularly because Alejandro Cerruto, who is the new Pacific Northwest Ballet resident choreographer, comes from Harbor Street Dance. I watched him improv with the dancers, so I know it's necessary. So to me, there's a twofold benefit. One is to give some autonomy and some mastery to these young women. And the other is make them better dancers so they can get a contract, so they can actually do this for a living. Nicole, I'd like a couple of your thoughts on that. And then I want to talk about what it means to get commissioned by a company for a main stage work, how that changes your feeling about your own work.
Yeah, I completely agree with both Garrett and Eva with what they were saying. I think there's that delicate balance, and that starts with the teachers and the environment you create, that the long term we're working towards these big goals, but in the short term we have to celebrate the small wins and know that it's a journey and not a race, that we're getting places. I have definitely found in this program we have a lot of students first time away from home, first time out of that very linear environment. And so it's a daily discussion, reminder, ways to think about things, tools for their toolbox. And I've really found when they are in a small group in that community and they feel supported, then they feel like they can take those risks with the group because the group is supporting them on their journey. And it's not just win or lose, that day, what happened. It's, all of them are in it together. And, for some of them, improving their own choreography is a piece of cake. For some of them, they've never done it before. And so having them work together and learn from each other, I think is one of the most valuable tools I've seen. And so I really just try to encourage that they are a team and it's not 10 individuals working against each other, whoever gets there first. It's how we all work together to get as far as we can with everyone together at the end.
Yeah, and that sounds to me like a company culture issue because you have to have the support of somebody like Garrett. So next question is going to be for Garrett about fostering that kind of culture. Okay, big, I'm sure both you and Eva would like even bigger commissions, but talk about the feeling and what it took to get you there to the first, main stage big company commission and how that changed you inside or how you had to get ready for that. And you may have been ready a while ago and it took longer than it should have, right?
Yeah, it took me 30 years. Piece of cake. My dance career path, I feel like I'm just doing it in reverse. Usually you train seriously, you master choreography, you go out and you live out of a backpack and you're traveling and you're dancing and you're performing and you're choreographing, and then maybe you settle and you teach. And I did mine the opposite way. After starting my dance company in London, I moved to Seattle, settled down to teach. I had kids, and just kind of started my dance festival, but was just kind of making a lot of work under the radar. And then PNB, I mean, luckily I was making work on students, and Peter Bowl was looking down his office window into my studio, and he saw me work day after day. And finally they created a program where they just commissioned locally. The program's called Locally Sourced, and hired commissioned three local choreographers. I happen to be one of them. I'm certainly the first female local Seattle choreographer to ever set a work on stage at Pacific Northwest Ballet. It was definitely an eye-opening experience. I realized that I work in a completely opposite manner to how every other ballet choreographer works. It was a huge learning lesson for me. I learned many, many things along the way. Some I don't want to ever have to learn again, but the final product, I was very pleased with it. The feedback I received was phenomenal. The first time in my life, I had a company of professional dancers. I had costuming, I had set, I had light design. I had suddenly had access to everything. My dance company, we buy our costumes at Value Village or Good Salvation Army. And now I was able to have my costumes handmade and designed. So certainly flipped everything on its edge. Of course, things started to open up, opportunities came up for me that I was very thrilled about, and then the pandemic hit. So everything got shut down, and I lost a lot of stuff, but I'm working to get it back.
Yeah, I think everybody's trying to figure out. I'm going to go to Nicole about her first big commission, and I do want to talk to Garrett about being an artistic director of a company that has commissioned a ton of women, and has a lot of fans out there. So Nicole, just give us a short one on what it was like, how you got there, and then where you want to take it now you've done it.
Yeah, my first big commission outside of a company I danced was with Richmond Ballet. And my favorite part of the story is that I sent them my materials 5 years prior, and just got a call randomly about it. And it was a wonderful experience, in part because I knew some of the dancers in the company. So while I was still a dancer and had worked a lot with my own contemporaries, it was nice to go to a company environment where at least I knew some people. And, you know, the fact that I might be younger than them or anything like that wasn't really an issue. And it was just an incredible experience. I think it was also reaffirming that it's not just in the walls of a company I dance for, that I can make work that, you know, dancers enjoy dancing, that the audience enjoys doing. And like Eva said, you know, getting to work with a new ballet master that I've never met before, getting to work with costume designers, lighting designers, and really having it feel like that real piece that is part of a company rep was really just an incredible experience. And I think encouraged me to keep going alongside my dancing career. I think it was kind of hard to feel like maybe I was being pulled in two different directions. And, you know, it kind of just propelled me to keep going, and really, I think, started me going after a lot of commissions, mainly during the summer when I had time off. And that I really loved doing.
So that experience, God bless Stoner, may I just say, one of my favorite people in dance, love that company, gave you the confidence to say, okay, I've done it. I can go out. I can look for other commissions. That's wonderful. Yeah. Garrett, I want to pivot to you a little bit. You're the dude in the room. I think you're our second or third gentleman we've invited on. You're in good company. Tyrone Brooks from Tallahassee, and Trey McIntyre, who'll be joining us for round 4. You have a really strong track record of programming women. 2019-2020 season, 5 of Ballet Idaho's world premieres were by women. Can you talk about, and maybe you just don't distinguish, maybe you don't even think about it, maybe what you see interests you, and that's why you've commissioned these women, but I'd love you to talk a little bit about it.
Well, you described it well. Initially, it wasn't an intentional choice, I would say. I think I became more aware of that choice because of the need that I've become more aware of partly through the work of DDP and through the conversations I've had with women in the dance world. But to be honest, I wasn't as deliberate at first just because I was always surrounded by these amazing women. And I knew so many talented choreographers that I was so, when I was given this opportunity to direct a company, I was so excited to put them out there and for our dancers to be able to experience all of their wisdom and gifts. So to me, it wasn't as deliberate until people started pointing it out and talking about the need, and now I understand that more. So thank you for your work in that front, and talking about women in leadership in general. That is, of course, one of the primary leadership roles in our industry. But my hope is that these choreographers will also become directors and executive directors and leaders in dance and other fields through their experience as choreographers. But yeah, that really is it. I knew all of these people that I had worked with or had worked next to, and it was part of the culture of the company I wanted to create, and they embodied these values, and kind of that's how it's rolled out. I don't know if that's a bad answer, but
It's a wonderful answer because you make it sound so easy. And I will say probably once or twice a week, I really just want to stand up from my desk and find a good hard brick wall and bang my head against it. No, seriously, it's like, how hard is this? It is not brain surgery. And there you have it. I mean, bless you, Garrett. Eva, I want to talk about Chop Shop a little, because when I went out to Seattle and saw Pacific Northwest Ballet, I think we met twice now, and you're doing it all on your own, right? And this time, and it worked in the middle of a pandemic, which I find both awe-inspiring and fascinating. And maybe it's because you've done it so much before. Where do you get the energy? How come you keep doing it?
I'm exhausted.
Is it your favorite part of what you do? Talk a little bit about Chop Shop, because it's a thing, and you got it done, and you sold a ton of tickets.
I have to say, I don't do it fully alone. I do have a partner in crime, Lizzie Melton, who is been by my side for a large majority of the past 14 years that I've been producing this festival. I came to Seattle. Seattle at that time kind of had two extremes. It was PNB and then a very kind of experimental downtown Seattle kind of vibe. And my work kind of sits weirdly in the middle. It has this kind of ballet foundation and then kind of takes off from there. And I wasn't finding an opportunity for my work to sit. So I'm like, well, I better start making something on my own. So I got some artists together. We had a performance. It was self-funded. I panicked thinking that I wouldn't be able to pay anybody. I broke even. I was deeply upset, and everyone was like, "You broke even on your first show?" And I was mortified, but everyone said that's unheard of. And so I thought I realized I was onto something. The festival itself, the other side of it is that I've been making dances for 30 years, and I have people in my family who still do not understand what I do for a living. And I know that we love dance. We're surrounded by dancers every day. Aren't we lucky? But I could go right outside my front door and introduce you to 15 people who don't care about dance at all. So I'm interested in how to get those people into what we do. So the entire mission of Chop Shop is to make it accessible. I do this by reading dance lectures, which are lectures that literally break down how dances are made. So I was sitting in my living room and I was reading an article about the periodic table, and I thought, great, I got to make a piece about the periodic table. And then I got my dancers together, and this is how, really just breaking it down very simple on how dances are choreographed and created, and also how to read them and how to find meaning in them from the choreographer's perspective and your own. We offer free introduction modern dance classes. People who've never danced a day in their life, come take a class for free. Everyone who attends those classes gets a $5 ticket to the show. We curate and commission local, national, and international artists. So our audiences are educated. They've had an experience, a physical one, and an academic one, and then they come to the show and they can relate to the work. So we've been doing that for 14 years. a pandemic hit, and then we thought, hey, let's pivot the whole thing online. And somehow we did it. In fact, it's still going on now. Go to chopshopdance.org and you can see 7 amazing dance films, mine included, that are from artists from around the United States. It just takes a lot of work. I have an incredible Partner. I have a very supportive family. I don't sleep much, but we're doing the good work.
That's amazing. So I do want to talk a little bit both to Nicole and Garrett before we go to the last question, which is the big question about how can we improve, how we can get a more inclusive audience, although Eva did in part answer that. How can we market it better, platform it better? But I'm going to go first to Garrett and ask him pandemic planning, your thoughts for the year, how the art form should be changed from what we've learned.
Yeah, what we did was like 7 different iterations of the season that eventually we did, and even that changed as we went. So I think the lesson there, of course, is just the adaptability and embracing that we don't know what it's going to be, and we can make a really good plan and have a really good idea, and it won't work that way, but it'll work some way, and just keep looking for that option. The real challenge for me is getting people like Eva was talking about, getting people to pay attention, to understand the value, and for us to be able to state that value clearly, because there's so much happening in the world, especially this year. Why should people pay attention? Why is our work important? And if we're not asking that question and really letting that resonate in the work, but also in our messaging about the work, no one is going to pay attention. So that's been something we've continually wrestled with. And of course, there's some really simple answers why it's important, but I think and those have always been true. But I think for us to talk now about relevance in our art form in our world, that's an ongoing conversation that I think starts kind of what Nicole and Eva were saying earlier about asking first the artist, who are you in this work? Why does this matter to you? Because if we can't state that for us and embody that in the work, then it won't resonate with people looking at it. It'll just be decorative, and it'll just be museum pieces. So I guess that's a long-winded answer. We're still figuring that out, and it is that adaptability and constantly searching for the meaning in it.
Yeah, I mean,
to remove some of those boundaries.
I can't imagine a better answer. I will say that unfortunately, a lot of the work I do see is not particularly even decorative. Not everything has to be hugely, deeply meaningful, but I do also think there's that discipline and that excellence. And a lot of the stuff I've seen, I'm like, I should have stayed home. And then I was like, well, I did stay home, but I still.
Well, we're asking for people's time on one more screen right now, or one more logging into something. So it better be good, or it better take them somehow out of their experience and provoke some thought, hopefully.
Yeah. Nicole, deep thoughts in about 30 seconds to a minute.
I mean, I think from a teacher standpoint, the biggest thing I've seen is we really need to teach students to love dance, because if they don't love it, they're not going to want to be on Zoom. It's already a hard profession. And if you don't have that deep passion for the art form, the history of it, everything that's come before you, everything that's going to be, then why are you going to work really hard to have a great time do? It's a lot of work with no reward. So I think teaching that deep-seated love is so important. And I think for the institution, it's the perfect time to question everything. Like, nothing should be the status quo, nothing should be assumed. Because before they had the excuse of, well, we got to get everything out, but we've had to pause. So why not come back better instead of waiting to go back to a normal that maybe wasn't the best? Let's create something new and better and more inclusive and more open to everyone, instead of just waiting to backtrack to what we knew. So
I feel like we should come back in a year and sort of revisit all this. I mean, these are great answers. And I love your idea of, let's take a breath, a pause, and see how we can do it differently. Thank you all so much. These are big, huge questions to be thinking about, but per Nicole's point, if not now, when, right? When is the time to think about it? I've been working on a social media campaign called Yes, This Is an Art Story, because I get so many calls to fund the arts. And my answer is, fund something that undervalues or doesn't value at all the labor of women, makes it almost impossible for 3 million women to stay in the workforce. Why do I want to build that? Why do I want to prop up something that's not particularly meaningful or equitable as it is? So I thank all three of you for your work in challenging that. And also, frankly, bringing the fun back. Where did the fun go? Right? It's okay to have fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's vital at this
A good
point.
reminder.
Absolutely vital.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Nicole Haskins, Eva Stone, and Garrett Anderson, for your great thoughts and contributions. We welcome you to our various platforms. If you want to talk a little bit more, write a piece. Nicole's written some great ones for us. Eva, that means you get to sleep even less time. All right. Well, thank you all so very, very much. It was just a huge amount of fun.